Bases dropped on a new round of SDH AM, and wow, the hair is out of control this morning. I guess it's the weather. John, hear you there. Thanks for dropping by, as you always do. And it's another week here of SDH AM. We'll kind of lay out the week for you, let you know what's going on in our universe as we get you ready for everything going on around the rest of the universe. So coming up this morning, we got a lot to get into. And I know that Gabe Schray is joining us at 10:30 to talk about MLS Next Pro, where we're down to the Final Four. And we'll kind of recap last week to get us to this week, since the world blew up last week and we couldn't do anything. And also, Gabe's going to break down USL League One into the regular season, getting into the postseason. We'll try and catch up with Kaylor Hodges from at the USL show. And we'll break down USL Championship with him as the week goes on. So that's today. Here's what we got. We have match day ones in Major League Soccer. We've got to get into those. The triple header from last night and what happened Friday and working our way forward. So Friday, Sunday, MLS, we got that. We're going to talk about it. We've also got U.S. Women's National Team. Remember, Bart told us last week he'll be driving, maybe. Considering that the weather's really crappy, I'm hoping he's not. If the weather's not crappy, I hope he is doing so safely. He may join us if he hasn't started driving yet. That's traditionally at 10 o'clock. And traditionally in about 10 minutes, Abe Gordon drops by. We may go over everything Major League Soccer with Abe and kind of walk through everything there and what his thoughts are on the postseason and what we've seen so far. And Atlanta United still waiting on a couple of things where they are concerned, and we'll see what the latest is in and around the Five Stripes as it continues to develop here in the footprint. So today, once again, it is USWNT rebounding against Portugal. The Deaf National Team might be something opening kickoffy. Actually, I've got a better opening kickoff. So we'll take the national team segment and we'll have it as the national team segment between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. Then also on the board, you'll hear from Emma Hayes. You'll hear from Olivia Moultrie, who had a brace in the first 10 minutes of the matchup yesterday. And it was really cool as a part of the doubleheader to have the Deaf National Team playing. We'll go into those stats, and you'll hear from Chris Bordon and Samson Abraham, who were the post-match, part of the post-match yesterday with the Deaf National Team and their win. So like it's MLS, MLS Next Pro, USL League One, El Clasico. We can get into that. And it is everything in Major League Soccer that has happened to get us to where we are right now. So that's the rundown for the morning. On the week, we're going to catch up with our friend Jason Stevens, who is officially off. He's back on the field of play, and so we'll catch up with him. That'll be on 10:30 tomorrow. And yeah, we got an update on our friend John Textor, and we'll get into that, and also the Sheffield Wednesday administration. So we'll walk through administration, walk through Sheffield Wednesday situation, discuss John Textor this morning, and then catch up with Jason, and that'll air tomorrow at 10:30, and we'll get into the discussions about multi-club ownership models, administration, and kicking tires on clubs. KCD should be joining us at 9:15, and we will catch up with her on Tuesday, find out what it was like with her in college soccer over the weekend, go through college soccer, go through the international break, go through the NWSL, set the table up for Decision Day coming up this week in NWSL, and we'll go through all of that. Wednesday, once again, set to join us. It is our friend Tyler Pilgrim, Scarves and Spikes, the busiest man in the Northeast, Dylan Butler. And then we start to get into our MLS Match Day 2's coverage. And we've got two matches tonight, Match Day 1, that we have to preview as well. So we'll be chasing Chicago, Nashville, Charlotte, San Diego, Life at the Murph Dragon, in addition to everything else that is going to happen tonight with Hell is Real and with the Loons matchup as well. So that's kind of where we are when it comes to anything and everything going on this week. So we're going to be efforting a lot of Major League Soccer postseason. We're going to be efforting the matchups as they show up, and we'll let you know what's going on there. 6:45 tonight, which means 6:55. The 2 and the 7 in MLS Next Pro. Cincinnati and Columbus at TQL. Hell is Real. Once again, that's tonight. We'll go over the juice boxes and then more of a look in just a bit. And like I said, we'll catch up with our friend Chris Doran at some point. We're going to put out the bat signal and get his thoughts on everything that happens tonight. 9 o'clock, which means 9:20, 9:25-ish, Minnesota and Seattle. It is the 5 and the 4 and Seattle travels to the land of the loons, and we'll go over juice boxes and previews of that in just a bit. So yeah, and Ricky, once again, the intrepid producer that Ricky is, he saw the John Textor story, and it is apparently MJ Shrimper who was at the Athletic and has gone a little deeper into the situation. So yes, why it's complicated. Damn right, it's complicated. That reminds me. Let me write this down. All right. So I wrote it down just to write it down. And last time you'll remember that John Textor was kicking the tires on folks. It was with Sheffield Wednesday. And that really didn't go the way that he had planned. And so you're looking at John Textor now kicking the tires on Wolves. And we'll get into, like I said, that with a couple of different things. So Matt Slater was one that got into the it's complicated. So if I'm guessing if John Textor and football had a relationship status like we see on the face space, it's not like married, boyfriend, girlfriend, separated, divorced, what have you. It's complicated. So Matt Slater goes into that, and we'll get into that. And like I said, we probably will end up spending an ish load of time on it, just because, like I said, it'll lead into our interview with Jason Stevens that we're going to tape tonight, his time, and we'll run it tomorrow at 10:30. So we'll get into, like I said, we'll get into administration. We'll get into John Textor. That's going to be at 10:30 tomorrow. So that's we'll get into that, but we'll get into the details of everything John Textor. And I just wrote a note to myself to go ahead and DM him again on Instagram, because the last time that he tried to kick the tires on a club, I DM'd him on Instagram and got no response. So I will once again DM our buddy and find out what's going on, and really just how much he would be a part and parcel to all of this. So yes. MJ Shrimper, yes, it is a complicated thing. We'll put it that way. It is a complicated thing with our buddy John Textor. And as always, and I will ask how long he's going to be with us, because since we are in the Atlanta United postseason and we're getting ready for everything, trying to figure out what 2026 is going to look like, Abe is furiously putting notes away. And so he's getting ready for everything. And so he's going to join us here, as he always does, bat and lead off on a Monday. We'll just keep him for like 15 minutes because of, his real world job. What's going on, my friend? What's the latest?
Running a couple moments late. People don't know how to drive in rain. And so that's, that's all good. That's all good.
Yes,
I missed you. I missed you last week. There's been some change since the last time you and I spoke, because it was Saturday night. It was the season finale, the Brad Guzan farewell. And one of the last things we said was that based on the comments tonight, it sounds like Ronnie Dyla wants to return to this club if it's up to him. There was that caveat that you and I presented, and obviously it wasn't up to him. And so that's obviously been a big discussion, and will continue to be through the course of this offseason until a name is presented. But things have changed since the last time you and I spoke.
Yep. And, it is going to be obviously us here. I don't know if that's even proper grammar, but those of us here will be keeping an eye on it and trying to sort out the wheat from the chaff and all of that stuff. So it's going to be head coach Chris Henderson. This is Chris Henderson's team now, because the conversations and the news release, this team statement that came out involving Garth Lagerwey. So this is going to be Chris Henderson's team. And what we have seen since Garth has started to undergo treatment is that it is Skate Knopfsinger, Demetrius Evstathiou, and Chris Henderson. That does not change. So leading into this postseason now and the preseason in 26, it is a decision on Ronnie Dyla's successor, and it will be a decision on everyone else who is of contract or of desire from other places. So this is Chris Henderson's team going forward here right now to determine the decisions for 26.
Yeah, and the interesting debate that I've seen, and I know there's a couple of names that have been thrown around, but I don't think anyone's seriously being attached just yet. But I do think the question is, does MLS experience matter at this moment? Is this a name we're looking for that has succeeded in MLS, or are you comfortable going outside again? And I think probably the size of the name would matter in that discussion. That to me is less interesting than the debate I have presented, which is, are you bringing a guy with his own tactics, own ideas, and then you make personnel moves to fit that?
Mhm.
Or are you bringing someone in with the idea of building around what you already have, and a guy whose mindset and ideas fit the current personnel? Because I think that's such a important discussion, especially in a league where turnover is, it's manageable, but you can't just, it's not college football. You can't transfer portal in 30 different guys, right? There's a specific number of pieces you can switch out on a given window year by year. And so I think it's difficult if you bring in a guy, and I'm not saying this should shape the hire.
Right.
I do think it is difficult if you bring in a guy that has his own ideas, his own tactics, and it's maybe not best for what this team currently has personnel wise. You got to give that guy leash, right? You can't be firing him after 1 year, because the turnover, the changeover can't happen in one window or even in two. As Ronnie Dyla had said before he parted with the team. I mean, if you're really changing things up in a big discussion, you have got to give it time to see it through.
Well, and then there are situations like we've seen in other leagues worldwide where this season, Forrest is an example. Forrest decides after the disagreements between head coach number one and their owner that we're going to go off in a huff and give a big harumph, and Nuno goes away. And so what do? You bring in your friend who tactically and spiritually and philosophically is 180 degrees from what you were running. And so Ange Postecoglou comes in, and his style is pedal down, slam it to fifth gear, and go, which was counter to what Nuno Espirito Santo was doing. And you had Ange lasting 39 days. They did nothing in 7 matches. We're getting rid of him. And now we're bringing in a guy that we probably should have brought in the first place to fit tactically and philosophically what we should have done. And now we see that you've basically lost 7 weeks in trying to get something done and try to get back into the top of the standings in the Premier League. That's the danger here, is that I know that we're talking like longer gap times and things, and you're not trying to bring in a new coach during the season, but you can't do somebody that's a 180 with the personnel that's there and expect matter and antimatter to sit there and get along.
Well, and the other thing is, and John, you probably know the MLS timeline better than I do, but I think the guys are still with the club right now. I think there's like a required number of weeks, whatever, after the end of, and it's like, boy, if you had a name and you had a guy now and you could have brought him in quickly, you could start that transition with this time that you have doing. And I know you're not making massive, but I still think there's some ideas and focuses that you could present. And it's just like, man, if you make this hire after these guys part for what is their off season, it's like, boy, there's a couple of weeks there that's lost. And so I do wonder how quickly they have in mind to try and get this done. And again, that's going to come down to who they're bringing in. Are they bringing someone in that's currently in MLS or around this club? Are they trying to talk to someone in other leagues, and they have to figure out the right timeline for that as well? So a lot of questions that crew led by, as you mentioned, Chris Henderson has to figure out, but it'll be interesting. And one of the things that's I would say a little bit concerning, and I think we've seen this from commentary outside of Atlanta, is I don't know how much Atlanta United is still viewed the way they were 3-4 years ago. And a couple seasons where you don't find much success. And I know you ran through the playoffs a little bit last year. People might view that more as a one-off or a fluke than necessarily what this club is. Still a great fan base, but the stadium is emptier and emptier week by week. I think that can be attributed to what happened this season, right? If you're winning games, it's not going to be announced 40,000, but in reality 17,000. It would be announced 65,000, in reality 55. And so you can't necessarily just take this season, but you look around and you got the great training facility that's top tier as well. That's part of it. But I don't know if Atlanta United is necessarily viewed the way they were 2, 3, 4 seasons ago, and as like the place to be if you're a manager in MLS. And so you're fighting a couple of different aspects of an uphill battle in terms of getting the biggest, best hire you possibly can. And part of that is you've gone, 4 coaches now in 5.5 seasons or whatever the number is. Yeah. And the lack of stability is starting to catch up with them. And I think we saw that in Arthur Blank's statement that was really, and that to me was like, oh, it sounds like he's moving on here. And we didn't have that word officially, but now it's people who are watching the other football team are starting to be like, he made a change over there, make a change over here.
Yeah, that would not surprise me either. Right, we have seen in the off season, and you have until the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, November 26th, to make your exercising of options and submissions of bona fide offers. 1:00 Thanksgiving Wednesday is your deadline. So you're about a month out from those particular offers. We have seen a couple of teams already do the postseason, the end of season maneuvering. St. Louis was one, Montreal was one, and Toronto was one. And there were a couple of names that were out there that were intriguing. Sean Johnson was option was not picked up in Toronto. I know that probably got a lot of spidey senses up in this part of the world. Bryce Duke in Montreal is one. So there's some, you got to keep an eye between now and Thanksgiving Wednesday about exercising of options. That starts this whole process. College showcases in early December. Free agency opens on December 10. And so clubs can engage with players other than their own starting on December 10. Reentry process starts Thursday, December 11. You get end of year waivers at that point. Reentry stage 2 on the 17th, and the super draft is on December the 18th. So I think for those that are the folks that want to sit there and fill out rosters, you've got about a month to see what clubs are going to be not exercising options and jumping that deadline as to who might be in play that you could put on your wish list to bring in for 26.
Yeah, and then it goes into the question of who's building this team, a manager or a technical director, and can the technical director add pieces, not knowing who the manager is yet, and so that and you say what, December, whatever it was, as the free agency window, like that to me has got to be like worst case scenario, a deadline for having a manager in, because it is integral that the technical director and a manager, not just here, any sport, any team, because we've seen it fall apart when it doesn't work this way. They've got to work together on the right pieces that fit a system, pieces that a manager believes in tactically. It can't be, here's your team, you make it work. That just doesn't work. I think we've seen issues across multiple sports, whether it's basketball and it's like, this guy was our top talent and I know he doesn't fit positionally what we need, but we got to make it work. Yeah. It doesn't work there. It doesn't work in football, where we've seen for years and years and years, Al Davis fall in love with a guy and just pick him. And then you have massive deficiencies where you could have plugged some holes.
You didn't think Sebastian Janikowski was worthy of a first-round draft?
I mean, look, Janikowski probably is a Hall of Fame kicker, right? So you can make your arguments, but they did also try a 70-yarder with him, and he kicked it to the front of the end zone, which is hilarious. Yes. Maybe with the new kicking balls, he would have made it. But yeah, I think synergy is so important, and that continues to be a reason why you'd like to get a hire in sooner rather than later. That gives you time to scout your own guys and figure out which of these guys you want to keep, and then also look elsewhere, both inside and outside MLS, in terms of what you want. So look, the timeline is relatively set, and we'll see where they go. I still think when you look back on this season, John, the talent is better than the results. Yeah. And I just, whether it's a switch in mindset, a switch in tactics, a couple of players in and out, it doesn't feel like you have to be that far off. I mean, this team was so close to being the worst team in MLS. Talent-wise, it still feels like they are better than that. And so I do wonder if a new manager can get more out of these guys, plus the addition, or if need be addition by subtraction in some cases. You can get this thing turned around. And I'm not saying you're winning Supporter Shield first year in, but get back to being in that discussion for middle seeding, out of the play-in round, but not hosting.
Right.
If we're going to be honest, like that's going to be the expectation for whoever the manager is in year one is probably, can you be a 5, 6, 7 seed? I think it's going to start there. I don't want to jump too high and get crazy. We got crazy this year and it blew up in our faces. But I don't want to present zero expectation and just pretend that just getting into the playoff round would be a job well done either. This is still, despite my comments earlier, it is still Atlanta United. You have spent money. You do have talent. And so I think a fair ground to set for year one under whomever the manager is going to be is 5, 6, 7 seed. And I think we start there. And I think this team is capable of that with the quality of players. But they've got to get on the same page. And there were issues this year where there were some guys that never got on the same page through the entire season. And maybe that was due to injury for parts of the time. Maybe it was not their style of play or their preferred tactic, whatever it's going to be. You need buy-in and you need chemistry. And this team didn't have it this year. And I think the results on the field showed.
Yeah. And I think to your point, I think that anybody that walks in the door that wants to be manager for Atlanta United, you've got to come in with that mindset of, yes, we're going to turn things around. This team, we can fix things here, and here. I like these. I like this base. I like what's going on with the twos and the academy and the younger players. But I think we can do this, and this, and chase after the playoff berth. And I think to your point, I think you don't want to just sit there and say 8, 9. Yeah, our goal is just to get into the playoffs and see what happens. I think that you're looking for that 5, 6, 7, and someone who walks in the door with that kind of confidence of, yes, we can turn things around. We need to do this with this and this and this and this, instead of saying 1 through 4 and going after a home berth. I think that it's growth where you get in more than just the 8, 9. Then you try to work toward being a top 4 and going from there. So it's going to be a process with whomever walks in the door, despite how confident they are with what their mindset is coming into this.
And it's just about being realistic. I mean, you were so far away. Again, the turnaround year to year, you got to keep it at some sort of understandable expectation. You can't just every year, I know we're the worst team in MLS or close to it, but we feel like we're the best team now. That can't happen. There are steps and building blocks, especially in a year where there's probably going to be some growing pains early on with a new manager, possibly new tactics and other stuff. Some of the leadership will have changed, certainly with Brad Guzan going away, at least as far as we know, on the field going away. Who knows? Again, I did see him in studio already. Not exactly taking his time off to enjoy retirement either.
I don't think he believes in time off, frankly.
Yeah, no, he was looking good, and I still open spot on that 40-plus league that I'm in when he's ready. But look, I mean, there's a couple of other guys that I have viewed at times over the past couple of years as leaders for this club that may not be here. I think of Brooks Lennon, considering the contract situation, the cost, and some of the young up-and-comers. Is Brooks Lennon going to be – that's a guy I've looked to at times to address the team. So you're going to have these growing pains as new guys step up into those roles. And I think we have seen some of those guys. I think we've seen Matt and Jay, specifically youngsters. But they got to stay healthy to be out there to talk to their teams. I think we've seen certainly Schleich and Moranchuk grow into those roles. And then now with Miggy wearing the armband, certainly he feels that as well. So there are going to be growing pains. And I'd love to sit here and say, boy, first third of the season, growing pains is probably what kept you from a 4 seed. But you're safely a 5 or 6, and that still makes you dangerous. I just think that's a fair expectation. I don't think we want to get, and this is, in my opinion, part of what obviously hurt Ronnie Dyla. Although the the end result was its own discussion. I think part of what hurt Ronnie Dyla was, you got Latte Loth, you got Miggy. This team did what they did in the playoffs last year. There's no reason you shouldn't be one of the 2-3 best teams in MLS, or at least in the Eastern Conference. And I do think we got, myself included, I think we got way out ahead of realistic expectations. Now, they fell very far below what a realistic expectation would have been. So you can't crush them entirely for missing expectation, but I do think we got a little wild early in the season. I remember what your prediction was. I remember what my bold prediction was. Neither one was anywhere close to becoming true, but that's all right.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try and approach it more level-headed next season.
So does Raheem Morris make it to Foxborough on Sunday?
Yes, he will. I don't know if some of his staff members will, but I don't know. It's a weird thing. There just seems like some crazy hesitancy to make the change necessary. And it just seems obvious. And to me, like, Raheem's been a problem. I think the offensive coordinator's been a bigger problem. And it's your boy. You brought him over here, right? You don't want to make change. At some point, there will be a discussion. It's like either he goes or both of you go. And then, like, it happens every year. Every year there's someone who gets got because it's either both of us or just you. Why would I sit here and let both of us, take this fall?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. If it's going to happen, I would imagine it happens today. So
yeah, that was not the most how do we say it? the most emotionally embraceable hug with Raheem Morris and Arthur Blank after the game yesterday, where they got embarrassed by Miami. As always, my friend, great to see you to kick off our week, to let everybody know what's going on the planet. No, we will catch up with you this same time next week, unless you want to bang on the door because you got something to say.
No, I'll be around. You got it.
All right, that's Abe Gordon, everybody. And Abe's going to go get hydrated and actually talk about Falcons and things like that. So as always, it's great to catch up with Abe. Okay. All right. Like I said, we're efforting Bart at 10, but Gabe Schray, we do know at 10:30, MLS Next Pro, League One, all the things. All right, let's get into the rest of Major League Soccer and recap the weekend from the time that we left you on Friday and coming into where we are right now. Once again, doubleheader tonight. It is Hell is Real, 6:55. It's listed at 6:45, but since it's an over-the-air kick, listed at 6:45, I'm guessing 6:50 to 6:55. And it will be at TQL on MLS Season Pass, Apple TV, FS1, Fox Deportes. So that's your 2-7. Hell is Real tonight, 6:45 listing. I'm guessing 6:55. And then after that, it is once again the back end of the doubleheader. Loons hosting Seattle in the 4-5 out west. Season Pass, Apple TV, FS1, Fox Deportes. So I'm guessing 9:20 or 9:25. Now, that gets us into what we missed on the weekend, or what happened while we were gone. Let's put it that way. So it started Friday night, and Miami, Messi and friends take care of Nashville 3-1. It could have been a lot worse in the 3-6. And in that one, it was some dude named Messi scoring in the 19th. And he ends up with a header also at 90+6 to kind of salt things away. Tadeo Allende scored in the 62nd. It was 1-0 at the break, 2-0 at that point. Messi scored to make it 3. Mukhtar scored by the way, at 90+11. And it was 3-1 by the time they were done. Like I said, it could have been a lot worse. Probably should have been a lot worse on the day. And your stat breakdown, once again, shots. Miami had twice as many shots, 13-7. Shots on target, 6-3. And it was, I'm looking at basic saves here. So 3 saves for Joe Willis. And then we had a Roca Rios Novo sighting, and it was 3-2 there. Fouls, 30 fouls called in the match, 17 to Nashville, 13 to Messi and friends. Yet on 13 fouls, they get 2 yellow cards, 1 yellow card for Nashville on the day. So looking at the lineups just to kind of refresh ourselves and how the look was for Javier Mascherano, it was Rocco in net, Jordi Alba, Moxie Falcone, Noah Allen, Ian Frey, your back 4 that would turn into a back 3 with support at times with Rodriguez, Baltazar Rodriguez, Sergi Busquets, Rodrigo de Paul. They were your 2 yellow cards for Messi and friends from starters, and Allende. Then it was Suarez and Messi up top. And you end up with Hey, starting lineup, no real surprises. We got to talk to Lucas Panzica back on Friday to break that down. It was Snidely Whiplash in net, Joe Willis, Daniel Lovitz, and then it was Palacios, Walker Zimmerman, and Andy Nahar. Yazbek, Tagset, and Acosta ahead of them, and up front, Schaffelberg, Surridge, and Mukhtar. Surridge ended up with the yellow card for Nashville. So that was 3-1 on Friday night, and that gave Messi and friends the 1-0 series lead there in that one. Then you end up with nothing on Saturday, which means that everything else was on Sunday. Triple header, and it was Philadelphia and Chicago. There were a couple of instances early on where you might have been looking at yellows and reds, and it was one from Bruno Damiani and the other from Haile Selassie, where in the Haile Selassie incident, elbows might have gotten a little bit up. And so nothing happened, no cards in that regard. So it was a 2-2 game after 90 minutes, but it was almost 2-1. Nothing happened in the first half, goals-wise. Indiana Vassilev and Milan Olaski, who has been one of the finds of the season, and I'm still scratching my head as to how Milan Olaski escaped San Diego, because he was there. We all know about his time in USL Championship at Orange County, and Olaski was there on loan. San Diego, something happened. They claimed publicly it had to do with financials. They couldn't agree to a contract, and so the loan gets terminated. Olaski goes back to Midtjylland for like packing his bags and a cup of coffee, then comes back and ends up just lighting it up with Philadelphia, a piece that Bradley Carnell needed to help out offensively, and he really has helped out. It's kind of an understatement. So 2-0 in the 75th minute. Jonathan Bamba scores in the 84th to make it 2-1. Jack Elliott scores at 90+3 to make it 2-2. Then you have, I want to call it a moment of madness, but you had Kai Wagner, and, Wagner was kind of drawing folks in, and he certainly did. So you end up with a foul called as Wagner gets taken down. And I don't know what Sebastian Orahel was thinking. I really don't know what Sebastian Orahel was thinking. But Sebastian Orahel comes in from, Des Moines, and plows into, and absolutely just plows into Kai Wagner, knocking him down. And you end up Sergio Orahel. Sorry, not Sebastian. Sergio Orahel. Sergio Orahel just basically comes from Des Moines, knocks Wagner over. And I think it was with Brian Rodriguez was with the initial joust. But Wagner goes down, and then Orahel just comes storming in from like out of camera range and just knocks the you-know-what out of Wagner. So Wagner got Orahel to bite on the moment. Orahel will not be available, obviously, for match day number 2 in this series because of that. It didn't affect the final score in 90 minutes, but you then did not have Sergio Orahel available for you in the PKs. So you get to PKs, and early on, Chris Brady makes a save on Michael Ua. Andre Blake makes a save early on, and so after one frame, no one has scored. You go for a little bit, and then you have the moments that made the match at the end. And once again, keepers came up big. Here's your highlights of the late PK availability. Philadelphia and Chicago. Brought to us by our friends at Major League Soccer, Apple TV, Danny and Kanji on the call.
Put him off the bar! Ellie sends Blake the wrong way. The crossbar gives Philadelphia Union the opportunity to win game 1.
Looking to give the Union the advantage before they head for the Windy City. Looking to give them the game 1 victory here. Jesus Bueno says goodnight. Philadelphia Union needed the penalty shootout, but they win game 1.
The coolest and calmest person in the whole of the stadium. Even gave Brady the eyes as well. He looked the other way and said, okay, you dive that way, but the ball's going the other way.
Danny and Kanji on Apple TV, and thanks to them in Major League Soccer. Joel Waterman hit the crossbar flush. I mean, you knew where he was going. He had Blake beaten, and he smashed the crossbar. And then that gave Jesus Bueno the opportunity to get the game winner. He did exactly that. So advancing with a win out of match day 1 in that one, it was Philadelphia. So now they go to Chicago, and they get to try and close this out in 2. And once again, Chicago will not have Sergio Orahel available to them in game number 2. So Philadelphia wins that one 4-2. Rich, the noise that you're hearing is probably Rich Ransom. He's celebrating thusly. Shots 16-13, shots on target 5-2 to Chicago. Block shots 10, 7 of them to Philly. And passing accuracy, not really good either side, about 80% for Philly, 73% for Chicago. It was 20 fouls called, only 20. And that was another element in this, is that they let a lot go. A lot was left, not left to the imagination in this matchup. 20 fouls, only 20. Only 20 fouls called, and 12 of them to Chicago. The irony of all of this, in this matchup, you had 20 fouls called, 12 of them to Chicago. Saves on the day, 3 saves for Andre Blake, none for Chris Brady in regulation, and yellow cards, 3 each side. So here was the idea. So you have 20 fouls called, you have 6 yellows, and most of them, remember, were late considering the Orahel situation. You have the Orahel red, you have 6 yellows, 8 fouls called on Philly, 3 of them were yellow cards. 12 fouls on Chicago, 3 of them were yellow cards. So you had block shots as well, 7 blocks for Philly and 3 for Chicago on the day. So the 20 fouls and 6 yellows. I can't think of a 30% ratio in card, but Wagner, Glesnes, and Lukic for Philadelphia, and it was Elliott and Waterman, your two of your yellows, and Brian Gutierrez gets your third. It was Gutierrez that knocked over Kai Wagner that started the madness that ended up with the Orahel red, which means he won't be available for game number 2. So you end up with all of that activity heading back to the Midwest for match day number 2. So that's the fun there that was attached to game 1 on Sunday. Game 2, and I give the folks in Vancouver a boatload of credit, a massive amount of credit. They opened up the upper tank. BC Place was sold out. It was loud. It was crazy, and good on them. Absolutely good on them on the day. Announced crowd of 32,066. Victor Rivas was the man in the middle. Kyle Atkins, Diego Blas, your ARs. Izmir Pekmic, your fourth. Armando Villarreal and Michael Kampmeinert were upstairs. So you end up with Daniel Rios getting the goal, and it was a great service from the near side edge of the 18. Daniel Rios beating the defender to the point, and edge of the 6, Daniel Rios just smashed it past Michael Collodi, and that made it 1-0. Then you end up, that was the score at the break, and after the 1-0 margin at the half, Eric Quill makes some changes. And for Tony Husband and Ross Smith, Ross was with us on Friday getting ready for everything this weekend. It was Lalas Abubakar coming in, Logan Farrington coming in, Kike and Sam Sarver were out. Then 15 minutes into the second half, you end up with this moment as 1 tries to turn into 2. And really, I think if you're Vancouver, there's one dude that you turn to, and it's the guy that you brought in late in the year who has been nothing but straight up cash money. And sure, if you want to say loonies and toonies, go for it. Here's from the spot, the end result to make it 2-0, once again, courtesy of our friends at Apple TV and MLS Soccer.
5 penalties since arriving at Vancouver, one of which was last week against Collodi. So, in the mind game, what does he do here, having beaten him last week? As we approach the hour, it's Muller. And he scores! possession. And now a second goal for Vancouver, who look in big business heading to game 2 in this round 1 best-of-3 series.
They needed this. They needed the second to just about eliminate any hope for FC Dallas. That is a dagger. And it comes about from Savvy, who has been sensational with his movement and this solo effort. Urquide goes to the back of him and it sends Thomas Muller, who has been perfect from 12 yards away. He's been perfect since he landed in Canada. In his 5 previous penalties, he's done a stutter step and he's waited. This time, it's clean through. Back of the net, matter formality.
Ross and Tony Husband on MLS Season Pass, Apple TV, thanks to them in Major League Soccer. I feel like I need to toss to a commercial break now with all of the music they had in the background. We always going to hear that in our sleep. But 2-0 at that point, and Urquide, who has done really well in his rookie season in Major League Soccer, had a bit of a rough night. He fouls Emmanuel Sabi and basically just hip checks him inside the edge of the 18. And, I mean, it was Sabi had gotten past him. Urquide tries to keep him from getting more than an arm length forward away from him, and he does close the distance, but Sabi ends up getting hip checked by Urquide. Easy penalty call goes to Mueller, and Thomas Mueller puts it in the back of the net to make it 2-0. And then Urquide also had a hard foul late on Brian White, I believe. And Brian White wanted nothing of any kind of help from Urquide. So 3-0 your final there. Fantastic showing for everyone in Vancouver. So great that that big crowd was there, and it was a really cool-looking crowd to give them the 2 seed the win in game number 1. Lineups across the board. We'll get into stats here in a sec. So the third goal on the board went to Cabrera in the 83rd. It was 3-0, and it was a long afternoon for FC Dallas. Takaoka in net, your 4 at the back. Johnson, Priso, Halbuni, and Ocampo, the 2 in front of them. Berhalter and Kubas, Ali Ahmed, Thomas Mueller, and Emmanuel Sabi. Daniel Rios up top. Then Daniel Rios, after the goal, a couple of minutes afterward, looked like he basically blasted his right shoulder into next week. And he came on for another couple of minutes and then was substituted off. But Daniel Rios gets a goal, Thomas Mueller gets a goal, and Cabrera gets a goal. 3-0 the win there. And it was like I said, it was a long afternoon for FC Dallas going on the road to Vancouver. They'll try to even things up when they get back to Frisco. So shots, wow. I did not realize this, but shots on the day, and I'm going to double check this number before I actually say it, because I'm looking at the number and I'm going, is that really true? So let's find out. Let's find out if this number is in fact really true before I say anything about it. All right. So there's this is my second source on this. And it didn't seem like, yeah, okay. So I wasn't too far off to be concerned, but it wasn't, completely out of the realm. Okay. So MLSsoccer.com lists total shots at 22-0. 22-0 in shots. 10 shots on target for Vancouver, none for FCD, 5 blocks for Vancouver, none for FCD. But going to our friends at SofaScore, Vancouver is listed with an XG of 3.47 and Dallas at 0.42. Big chances, 6-1. They actually do give a shot to FC Dallas, and it was from the edge of the 18. They're saying that it was a shot from Bernard Kamungo in the 38th minute. He missed the shot, and Takaoka was there for it, but they're saying that shot happened in the 38th minute. So SofaScore makes it 22-1 in total shots. MLSsoccer.com has it at 22-0, 22-0. So either way, you didn't get a whole lot of offense out of FCD on the day, and 89% passing accuracy for the Whitecaps compared to 79. 10 corners to 1, 11 crosses to 1, and you had 12 clearances for FCD compared to 10 for Vancouver. Fouls, 25 of them called, 18 of them on Vancouver. 25 fouls called, 18 on Vancouver, 3 yellows given to Dallas on 7 fouls. We're seeing a lot of that this year. Seeing a lack of patience from the men in the middle. If a team doesn't have a whole lot of fouls called on them, they're going to get yellows. There was one moment in the match with Vancouver where a player gets basically hip checked in front of the bench, and he lost his shoe because of the hip check. It gets better because the same thing happened in the next match we're going to talk about. But, yeah, you get hip checked, and I don't think they called a foul on that particular move either. But it was just a long day for FCD. 3 goals, 10 shots, 6 off target, 5 blocked. So depending on your source, it was either 22-0 or 22-1 when it came to the shot differential for Vancouver and FCD in match day 1 on the day. 22-0 according to MLSsoccer.com, 22-1 according to SofaScore, and they credit the Kamungo shot in the 38th minute for that one shot on the day for Dallas. That was match 2. Then in match 3, quoting our friend Adrian Garcia Marquez, history will be televised. And it was in San Diego, as it was the 1-8, and Portland goes in after their win on the wild card round in the midweek, and they have to travel down to the Murph Dragon to take on San Diego. San Diego would get the Duke, and it was a big night for the sport in San Diego. Valakari scored in the 23rd minute off of a save and putting a rebound back in. Then you end up with this moment that happened only 7 minutes later and pretty much sent everybody there at the Murph Dragon into a frenzy. MVP candidate. And I know that he's probably going to end up finishing a distant second to the guy in Fort Lauderdale, but it's been a fantastic year for this guy, Anders Dreyer, who made it 2-0 once again, courtesy of our friends at Major League Soccer and Apple TV. Keith and Mo on the call.
Former MLS Rookie of the Year to come home and have this team now on his doorstep and be a part of it. Dreyer, Bombino, goes back in. Dreyer diving in and scores! I see you, Lionel Messi. Anything you can do, I can do too. Dreyer scores, and San Diego have doubled the lead.
This is a thing of beauty from San Diego FC. All the kind of triggers that you want, all the movements off the ball that you want, play out in a perfect way. And it's Anders Dreyer, yet again, the hero getting the finishing touch for San Diego FC. But just watch the center of your screen, because this little one-touch ball from Godoy is everything. It cuts out the defender. Now it gives Anders Dreyer a chance to receive the ball and not just continue his movement. Bombino does really well. He does really well to pick his head up. Enough weight on the pass to allow Anders Dreyer to show off his best Messi-esque type header to double the lead for his side.
We've seen that diving header somewhere before.
And that's Keith and Mo on the call. It was 2-0 at that point. You end up with a goal from Portland from Christoph Velda 6 minutes later, 2-1 at the break. And then then San Diego hangs on. They hold on to win 2-1. But probably one of the other elements that we want to keep an eye on in this is you had you had 2 yellows in basically a minute in the second half for Portland, and it means that they will not have Jimer Fori available in match day 2 when everything returns back to Providence Park. 2 yellows within a minute. That did not make his head coach very, very happy, and he let the 4th hear about it. But it was, 2 yellows in a minute. Jimer Fori, your starting left center back in your 4-3-3, your starting left back in a 4-3-3 will not be available for you come match day number 2. So that's a big thing there. Keep an eye out on how that's going to be approached by Phil Neville and what it's going to look like in match day 2 going up against San Diego. But yeah, you had 2 yellows within about a minute of each other. 65th was when the first one was registered. 66th was when the second one was registered. Jimer Fori done, and he will not be available for match day number 2. Pantemis in net for Portland. Forey, Kamal Miller, Sermon, and Mosqueda, your back four. David DaCosta, Diego Chara, and David Ayala, your midfield three. Then it was Velda, Mora, and Anthony, your forward three for Portland. CJ Dos Santos in net, left to right in the 4-3-3 for Mikey Veras, Luca Bombino, Manu Dua, Chris McVeigh, and Ian Pilcher. Then it was Godoy, Tverskov, and Anival Akari, your midfield. And then in the attack, Pellegrino, and it was Corey Baird and Anders Dreyer. So that was your rundown of that one. So you look at those matchups, and you have the home sides making their way through, as we kind of anticipate most of the time in these, that if the home side does not win in the first match, it is a bit of a surprise. But Philadelphia had to go all the way to PKs. They lead the best of 1-0. Vancouver, no worries, 3-0 in the 2-7. They get to go to Frisco, leading that one by a 1-0 margin. San Diego last night, 2-1 winners over Portland. And that's where we are with that. Now, today, once again, the two matchups, Cincinnati and Columbus at TQL. And like I said, it's looking like, as you sit there and you piece it together, it's going to be a 6:55 start because of the FOX demands that are traditionally a part of their broadcast platform and their broadcast rundown. So you have juice boxes tonight, and Cincinnati is favored at home, but it's on the plus side at a plus 142, which I find very interesting. Crew on the road at a plus 159. Your 90-minute draw is a plus 260. Nightcap, once again, listed at 9 o'clock, which means 9:20, 9:25, somewhere in there. Loons in Seattle, and Seattle is a road favorite at a plus 124. Draws a plus 231. Minnesota United is a plus 208. Intriguing. I think that the way that Minnesota has kind of limped their way into the postseason plays a lot into that. Seattle obviously has really no fear about playing on the road with anyone. So not necessarily a surprise that Seattle is favored, although I am surprised at the margin where Minnesota is a dog at a plus 208. That to me is somewhat surprising. But FC Cincinnati favored tonight. Hell is real at TQL, a little before 7 o'clock. And then around 9:30, a little before 9:30, Loons a dog at home to Seattle, who's a plus 124. So that's the rundown of the activity in Major League Soccer. That pretty much takes us through hour number one here. Dell did ask, did I hear what was said about the MLS playoffs on PTI? I heard about it, and not necessarily a surprise, but I did find the quote. So you have, obviously, for a quarter century, PTI, pardon the interruption, a part of the four-letter network, and Tony Kornheiser, who based in D.C., Michael Wilbon, based in D.C. So it's on their rundown. You know, they do like the rapid-fire rundown toward the end of the show, and they go through topic. They ask the other one about it. And so Friday on PTI in their rapid-fire, Kornheiser asks Wilbon about who he was picking to win Messi and Friends in Nashville. Wilbon did not answer, saying he wasn't going to be watching or paying attention to the game, but may change the channel to tune in at some point. And this is from our friends at Yahoo Sports. Quote, I got 3 TV screens, as you know. None of them will have that. I'll have the World Series large. I'll have the 2 NBA games flanking. I may click over to watch the boy wearing pink. I may do that. Seriously. I mean, I understand. I legitimately understand that Michael Wilbon is an NBA guy. I get that. But when you have situations like this as a part of a TV rundown, I don't know how much of a fan / follower / reporter of the sport in D.C. when Kornheiser was a scribe that he went to catch up with our friend Dave Johnson and see what was going on at RFK involving DC United. I don't know. I have no empirical evidence to this. But when you have something like this on the rundown for a show like this, my only posit is that it was put on there to get that reaction and nothing more. So the individuals that are part of this television show sadly do not want to grow the game, and it will be upon them to play catch up while the rest of us will continue to see the sport for what it is, as a growth sport, a sport that means a lot to community. I don't think that Wilbon endeared himself to the DC United community with that comment about how it's not going. It doesn't matter what the part is, but not having MLS on any of his screens. I get it. Like I said, if it's not your piece, if it's not your piece of pie, then fine. But to sit there and go, I may click over to watch the boy wearing pink. I may do that. I may click over to watch the boy wearing pink. Frankly, I don't know if we want people like Michael Wilbon, who say things like that, to be along for the ride in the growth of the sport. Just, you want to say that, fine. Just let the rest of us be a part of the growth of the sport, and then you can, harumph in the corner. It's the best thing I can say. If you don't want to be a part of the growth, then fine. But I also imagine that this was put in that rundown to get that reaction on the show for people who are fans of the show and fans of those two individuals and those gentlemen. But look, we got bigger things to think about. We have an international competition where folks are going to be chasing after a cup representing the entire world in 2026 coming to this country. And there's only so much that you can say to certain individuals. What is it? Look, there's only so much you can say to try and bring someone over to your side. But if they're going to exhibit this kind of a thought from the beginning, focus on the positive. Be a part of the growth of it all. Let them be the two that are going to miss out, or the one. I don't know if Tony had it on his TVs or not. We'll be a part of the growth of it. They can say whatever they're going to say. They can harumph all they want and, sit in a corner and have arms folded and, look like Morticia Adams or something, or Barbara Eden. Look, we'll be a part of the growth. We'll be better. We'll show the rest of the planet what it means as it continues to grow here in this part of the planet. If they don't want to be a part of it, fine. You do your thing. We'll do ours. We'll be happy about it. We'll be, showing the sport for what it is. And I know I've got the John Textor story coming up around the corner. But look, there's only so much you can do with somebody to sit there and try and change their mind or at least introduce them to something. If they don't like vegetables, you can't put vegetables on a plate and expect them to eat it. They're going to try and find the unsuspecting animal that is going to be hovering underneath the dinner table, trying to sit there and go, "What's on your plate?" And you sit there and you take the vegetable and you make sure that your parents aren't looking. You sit there and you take the plate, you put it under the dog eats what's on your plate. And you sit there and you put your plate back up. Oh, you finished your plate? Yeah, I did. Can I go now? Yes, you can go. You can go play outside or go watch TV or whatever. You're going to be that negative about it. The TV person in me knows why it was put on the rundown. We can all pretty much surmise why it was put on the rundown, to gauge that reaction, to get that reaction. But look, we're going to be a part of something. We are a part of something. We are a part of something that is growing in leaps and bounds in this country, and it doesn't matter the size of the city. It's unfortunate that you have folks that want to make sure that they are in a hermetically sealed container and not want to see what the sport means on a bunch of different fronts. But Wilbon, took his plate, had the vegetable on. It was the last thing he didn't want to eat. Put it below the eyeliner, the sight line of the table. Dog ate the vegetable, put it back up on the plate. 22 minutes and 50 seconds later, PTI is over. They've moved on. They've started their weekend. That's why I don't watch PTI. I just don't. I got better things to do. I'm not intentionally surly like all of that. I'm just not. Nope. Rich says Kornheiser uses population theory to decide who to pick to U.S. games, and he's a 20-year watcher of PTI. Yes, and now back to the nail biting that you had in Chester. Yeah. Rich, Wilbon, and Kornheiser have always not given soccer. They've always not given soccer little attention. Absolutely true. And Mateo, thank you for coming in. I believe this is the first time that you have been on, at least in the Twitch pitch. Welcome to the Twitch pitch. Don't be a stranger. Wilbon hasn't had an original take since forever. There are a lot of folks that sit there and you go, yeah, about right. Abby wants thoughts on what FIFA was discussing. Right now, all it is just talk. That's the best thing I can say right now. And Mateo says, Wilbon carries the water for the NBA. Yes, which has lost so much juice and quality over time. Yet soccer is where he has a harsh word. Yeah, exactly. Miss me with that. No, that's Mateo speaks for a lot of us. Miss me with that. Like, look, just enjoy the NBA. I'm not an NBA guy. That's your thing. You enjoy your thing. We'll enjoy ours. And, we will enjoy and we will go forward. And, but yeah, Abby, right now it's just lip flap. We still have plenty of time. Okay. Now, we do have USWNT to get into. We do have Deaf National Team to get into, but I do want to. I do want to, he says. I do want to get into the discussion involving our friend John Textor. And we'll see what the Athletic has to say about it in conjunction with what is apparently, allegedly, possibly, probably going on overseas. And Ricky's like, here he is spending our money. But it is listed right now. Once again, Matt Slater et al. Before the show started this morning, Slater came out with a large piece over at the Athletic. Over the weekend, it was divulged that apparently, possibly, probably, maybe, perhaps, that our friend John Textor has submitted a takeover bid for Wolves. How bad is it for Wolves currently? You're at the bottom of the table in the Premier League. And your coach had to be restrained after you lost to Burnley on the weekend. And your coach had to be restrained from your fans. And it also appears that there were some disagreements between players and fans in the car park as one of the players was trying to leave the match that they lost. Burnley at the Molineux was a plus 336. They scored late to win 3-2. Big 3 points for Burnley and our buddy J.J. Watt. So what that means is they were the last game on the board. Burnley is 5 points clear from the relegation battle. Wolves, at basically the quarter pole, 9 matches, no wins, 2 draws. They've given up 19 goals in 9 matches. They've only scored 7. They've lost 2 in a row. They've lost 3 of 5. They've lost 2 in a row after drawing 2 matches in a row. But they are basically, 4 points adrift at the moment. Fulham is 8 points, so 6 points adrift technically, and they've got to make up 7 goals in goal difference. If promotion relegation started today, Wolves is 6 points out of safety, and so it has gone sideways quickly for Wolves, who will probably fire Vitor Pereira, whenever they feel like it, which could be, later today at this point. So yesterday, our friend John Textor launched a bid to buy Wolves, according to both TalkSport and to The Athletic. So the offer was going to be dismissed by Wolves, who insist they are not for sale. Textor is believed to have tabled an offer consisting of £150 million in cash, along with a further £262.6 million shares. His approach was made without previous consultation or formal talks with Wolves' current owners, Fosun. And owners don't like that. You do have to make your intentions clear, as was the case with the ex-DJ and his consortium that were linked to Spurs, but they said, no, we are not going to make a formal approach. You have to do that publicly. So John Textor did not talk to Fosun and said, yeah, I'm going to table an offer for the club. They didn't take too kindly to that. The club, once again, because they were not consulted, have no plans to entertain the bid and instead are seeking external investment as opposed to a sale. And Fosun have owned Wolves since they bought them almost a decade ago. That bid would have seen Wolves join Textor's Eagle Football Group, Botafogo, Lyon, and RWDM Brussels. We went through everything where he sold his shares in Crystal Palace to Woody Johnson, so that would keep Crystal Palace from being demoted to Europa League. But then, because of Textor's involvement with Lyon, eventually Crystal Palace was moved to the Conference League. And so we also mentioned a while back about the public interest that John Textor has in Sheffield Wednesday. That we know. Now, apparently, he has a past of kicking the tires on folks like Charlton Athletic, who could use the help, Derby County, who could use the help, Queen's Park Rangers, who probably could use the help, and Watford. My guess is they probably could use the help. And once again, he showed his interest in Wednesday already this year. And now that they have entered administration with the 12-point deduction, they might be primed for the taking after all, because Defon Chansiri's basically thrown up his hands, put them in administration. And I don't know if you saw the video, but there was, as a part of the pregame show at Hillsborough on the weekend, the folks, I guess, in social media put together a presentation for the video board where they executed the Chansiri.exe program. Removed him from all of the things, and that got a big pop from the crowd. Textor has had previous talks with Defon Chansiri, who is now listed as a former owner. Al's administrators reveal they've received interest from 4 or 5, their words, serious bidders since entering administration on Friday. It is hoped the club could be sold by the end of the year, with EFL rules dictating they must stay on the market for 28 days. So you can sit there and kick the tires on it and go, you know what? I'm thinking this is a good idea. And so you sit there and you stake your claim and you're like, yeah, I'm in. So Matt Slater's article over at the Athletic, he says, normally in a situation like this, I'd write like 600 words about the interest of John Textor, about Eagle Football Group, who owns Botafogo, Lyon, and RWDM. So he can proceed with his plan to float Eagle 2.0, although probably without Lyon, on the New York Stock Exchange. Might weave in that Textor likes Wolves because of their long-standing policy of recruiting Portuguese players, which would make it easier to bring players over from Botafogo. Funneling South American talent to Europe's richest markets is a part of Eagle's business model. Yes, it is. Beat 2, 3, 4. Fosun. He would write that it's the last man standing from the wave of Chinese investors who came to England a decade ago. And then he would wrap it up by saying that if Textor is going to buy an English club, it's more likely to be a championship side. And so he mentions those 5 that we just mentioned. Textor's bid for Wolves, which was sent via Moelis, the bank Fosun is using to market its shares in the club, came in the same week a court in Brazil ruled that actions he took to ring-fence Botafogo from this summer's turmoil at Lyon, where he was forced to step down, had to be reversed. The ruling did not really change much on the ground at Botafogo, as it simply confirmed the uneasy truce that has prevailed within Eagle ever since Textor managed to talk Lyon's way out of administrative relegation. His exit from a decision-making role was a part of the price paid, but he remains the majority shareholder at Eagle, their parent company. The main lender for Eagle, Aries Management, has been trying to get back $425 million that it loaned to Textor to buy Lyon back in 22. He's already given Aries most of the proceeds from the sale of his Palace stake, according to Slater, was forced to accept the imposition of an independent director at Eagle to oversee Aries' interests elsewhere in the group. That director, according to Slater, a Scottish lawyer called Christopher Mallon, has recently stepped down for health reasons. He's been replaced by another insolvency expert, and Aries and Textor continue to discuss whether it's best for them to divorce, perhaps with Textor keeping Botafogo and Aries getting Lyon, or patch things up and recommit to the multi-club plan. In the meantime, Textor is involved in another disagreement with another of EFG's shareholders, Iconic Sports Eagle Investment, the special purpose vehicle set up by Jamie Dinan and Alexander Canaster. Aries, once again, that can be boiled down to Iconic believing it had an insurance policy for their $75 million investment in Eagle that obliged Textor to buy back Iconic's shares for a set price plus interest if Iconic's plan to take EFG public failed. Textor did not buy back those shares within the agreed 12 months, and they've been arguing ever since. Now remember, John Textor took folks to court in Florida when he had been taken to court in England. Court in Florida ruled against his request to have the dispute heard on home territory, as EFG is a UK-based company, and the deal with Iconic made it clear any dispute should be settled in English courts. So, these two that sued each other in their home territories, Textor lost out. So he can't sue them in Florida because he countersued them there, considering that Aries sued them from England. So it has to be an English suit. On Wednesday, remember, once again, he appeared at Cass. And for Slater's only listing it as $6 million, but it's the whole thing. Plus the sell-on fee to Atletico de Madrid. So that's where John Textor is right now. He is angering. I know that that's shocking to you. He's angering his fellow investors, and it is a bad scene. It is a bad scene right now. Once again, no surprise. And John Textor now is to the point where he where he is angering folks, and now he still wants to continue to buy folks, with apparently arguments over money and things like that. So that's where John Textor is right now, and we spent 20 minutes on it, but once again, I've always thought that was important. So when we have, and like I said, we'll talk with our friend Jason Stevens as our MCO graduate level class continues. We'll have that on tomorrow. So John Textor, I did not know about the decision by the legal wheels of justice in Florida on the suit and the countersuit. So that goes back to England for him. So we will once again effort John Textor, and we will try and figure out how he's still allowed to function, and how and my guess is you can just sit there and say, yeah, I want to buy somebody. You sit there and you make it public. You make it noticed. It's public. Boom. So you got that. So that's where we are. That's your John Textor update. I always think that they're important because of what's going on with Atlanta United, that anytime his head comes above the waterline when it comes to stories, we need to know what's going on. Mateo, not a fan of the MCOs. And Dr. D is like, yeah, you can buy Wolves, but if he's got the cash, you better pay Atlanta. Dr. D, I know. Liverpool's lost 4 in a row. Everybody's freaking out. Mateo wants to know if an owner gets out of line, we got the mechanics to remove them. Does that apply in the Prem? There is a standards and practices guideline. But then it goes to like the FA, and the FA decides, and it's all a part of that process. So that there is a process for owners that are questionable or having problems meeting their bills. And so when think of the Sheffield Wednesday conversation, where with Sheffield Wednesday, you have an oversight, you have the FA, and you have these opportunities to put the club into administration if you can't pay your bills. But the FA will sit there and penalize you points and penalize you points and penalize you points until you finally sit there and declare, yeah, I've had it and I can't find an owner. And so now I'm going to leave it to you guys to find an owner. That's the process. In the Prem, since they're a part of that whole pyramid and discussion, that goes the same way. If people are pissed, then you've got there are legal recourses by the leagues themselves, but it does go through governing bodies at the same time. So the ones to keep an eye on are the league that you want to know about, the FA. Traditionally, now it's His Majesty's Royalties and Customs. That's their version of the IRS. And the term administration. And like I said, we'll go into this with Jason today. We'll get his thoughts on it, and we'll play that tomorrow at the end of the show in the final half hour. So we'll go through administration and people being mad and not paying bills and things like that. So we'll get into administration with Jason, and we'll get into MCOs with Jason. We'll get into Textor with Jason, and we'll welcome him back to the land of the healthy. So we'll get into that discussion with him offline today. We'll record that interview. That'll be on late tomorrow. But I'll walk through it and I'll ask these questions. But you got to keep an eye on the FA, keep an eye on the term administration, and then keep an eye on His Majesty's Royalty and Customs currently. So those are the three that you have to keep an eye on when it comes to all this stuff. So the answer is yes, there is machination in place. But like I said, we'll go over it with Jason, and we'll get it more in depth with him tomorrow. It's later today for airing tomorrow. We'll talk about the whole Textor situation. So that's where we are. Okay. Gabe Schray set to join us in about 8 minutes. Let me rush through what happened with the women's national team, and they got their win back against Portugal. Olivia Moultrie ends up with 2 goals in the first 10 minutes. They end up with a 3-1 win, and it is time to catch up with we'll start with Emma Hayes. Did I download? Yeah, I did. And Emma Hayes after the match, courtesy of our friends at US Soccer in Veritone. After the 3-1 win, starts off with a question from ESPN's Jeff Kassouf.
Jeff Kassouf, ESPN. Emma, a few days ago you talked about the dangers of scoring early, maybe letting off the gas, being on the back foot. How do you feel like the team handled those exact circumstances today, and how rare is it to get a teaching opportunity, as you've talked about, with such a parallel from 3 days ago?
I mean, let's start with the fact that 10 players have 100 caps. Emily Sonnet has 111. So when you're looking at experience amongst 10 players, there's not a lot there. And I knew that there would come situations that show some of the dynamic qualities they have as less experienced players. I thought positionally, attacking-wise, we were much, much better in all phases of the field. I think it's a good lesson. The goal we conceded was an exact moment of not jumping out in the wrong moment. And didn't quite get a detail right. And as we keep telling the players, at the highest level, those details matter. So I have a coaching opportunity in and around the goal, but it's not the last. It's all of it leading up to that. But I thought we responded well from that. Kept playing, kept showing our principles. Showed the control element that I felt was lacking in the last game. And it was overall a much better performance.
Emma Hayes after the 3-1 win against Portugal. We mentioned the brace that Olivia Moultrie had, and it was wrapped around a 5th-minute goal by Portugal. So Moultrie scores in the 1st minute, Portugal scores in the 5th, Moultrie scores in the 10th. They get one more added to win 3-1. Here's Olivia Moultrie after the match in the mix zone, once again courtesy of our friends at US Soccer in Veritone.
I mean, I'm super happy. Like, most importantly, obviously getting the win, being able to right that wrong from a couple days ago. Yeah, and just be able to fix the things that we didn't feel like were great a couple days ago, like that unity that we talked about after being away for a little while, and just kind of feel ourselves come back together was awesome.
This was the second straight match you guys scored in the first minute. How are you guys able to take advantage of these early moments of the match?
I think the U.S. has been known for a long time about starting fast, and I definitely think we want to continue that. I think that's a strength for us, but then it's like the finishing strong piece is something that obviously wasn't perfect a couple days ago, but yeah, from the people who were on the field and started to the people who came in to the bench and the energy, like I really felt connected with my teammates tonight in all ways, and I feel like that's what allowed us to finish strong and get the result that we wanted. So.
Sonnet said she stressed in her pre-match huddle, like clinical finishing details. Was that the message going into it?
Yeah, 100%. Like being ruthless, always putting ourselves in the position that we want. And Emma talks about it a lot. Like we set ourselves up very nicely a lot of the time, and it's like that world-class level is being able to put them in the back of the net. So obviously getting 3 goals tonight as a team is great, and we just want to keep building off of that.
You touched on it a little already, but just generally speaking, how big of a response was this coming off Thursday's result?
Yeah, huge. I mean, like, there were some explicits in the locker room about, like, hyping everyone up, like, hey, like, let's go freaking right this wrong, and let's go put a couple goals in the back of the net. So 100% we felt that connection from top to bottom, every single person. And, yeah, loved being able to kind of right that wrong a little bit and just get the result that we wanted tonight.
Olivia Moultrie, after the match, once again, 3-1 win. And it was, once again, average age for that roster, 21.7. And you end up with the result that you did. And if I can, hang on just a second. I'm trying to put out a fire here. Did I spell it correctly? Yes, I did. And sorry, I'm sending an email real quick. We'll go over the numbers and the starters and what happened, and we'll go over the grades courtesy of our friends at Soccer America coming up in just a little bit. Okay. All right, let's get into the numbers and go over the starting lineup as well. Once again, Moultrie, 20, and club teammate Sam Coffey, teenage midfielders Lily Johannes and Claire Hutton, center back Jordan Bugg at the age of 19, inspired performance. Once again, the future is bright, according to Jenna Pell, who wrote the article for Soccer America. Claudia Dickey did not have a very exciting evening between the sticks as they honored Alyssa Nair, who is still she is a bad player. She is bad. She probably could still do some amazing things. Amazingly talented and honored as she should have been. Claudia Dickey really wasn't challenged, but she did get the start. Back 4, Avery Patterson, Emily Sonnet, Jordan Bugg, and Lily Real. Patterson and Sonnet were given 6s. Jordan Bugg is 7. Lily Real and Bugg both in their 3rd cap as well. So once again, back 4, Patterson, Sonnet, Bugg, and Real. 6s for Patterson, Sonnet, and Real. Jordan Bugg gets a 7. Midfield, once again, average age of 19. Lily Johannes, Claire Sutton, Jaden Shaw. Johannes and Hutton got 8s, according to Pell. Jaden Shaw ends up with a 7. Johannes in her 10th cap, Hutton in her 8th. And the forwards, once again, Olivia Moultrie, Ali Sentnor, and Alyssa Thompson. Thompson gets a 5, Sentnor a 6. Olivia Moultrie got an 8.5. That's the first time I think Soccer America I've ever seen give a 0.5. So Olivia Moultrie, an 8.5, Sentnor and Alyssa Thompson, 6 and 5. Subs on the day, and you had your 5. It was Emily Fox, Emma Sears in her 10th cap. Sam Coffey gets a 7 in her 40th. Yasmin Ryan gets a 5 in her 14th. And Lola Bonta, who was added to the roster, her 3rd cap, just because it was a cup of coffee, did not really get a rating. Central defender and captain Emily Sonnet, more caps with 111 than the rest of the U.S. starters combined, 100. They close out the international window Wednesday in Kansas City against New Zealand at 8 o'clock. And the 2025 slate is completed with a 2-match series against in Orlando on November 28th and in Fort Lauderdale on December the 1st in front of a crowd of 26,492. Shots 10-4 to the U.S. Shots on target 3-1. Fouls 18, 10 to the U.S. 7 offsides, 5 to the U.S. Possession 52-48. It's listed as 52-49. I don't know if you can do anything 101% of the time and still have 52% possession, but that's just me. Okay, it is 10:30, and so it is time to catch up with our friend Gabe Schray, where we look at everything MLS Next Pro. We look at everything USL League One, because you got one group in the postseason. You got one group heading to the postseason. So we'll look at both leagues. We'll kind of walk the last 2 weeks forward in MLS Next Pro and break down Gabe's thoughts as we head to the Final Four. And then in League One, regular season's over. We've got our matchups, and we'll look at what Gabe's thoughts are in USL League One here in 2025. And by the looks of things, Gabe is a very, very busy man.
Just a little bit. I like to keep myself busy.
Where are you?
I'm in Atlanta.
How did this?
How did this happen? I blame Jason Longshore.
Oh.
Matt Moore and Jason Longshore. Yeah, I was at the U18, U20, doing the academy stuff over the weekend, and that's always a blast, man. That facility is so cool and really, really fun to see those guys play, and also get their time in the spotlight and be a part of that.
All right. So like down what you see.
I feel like that academy program is very strong. I mean, every time, for me, it's just crazy to see those kids and be like, this kid is definitely about to be very important, right? You see a few of them and you're like, this guy is going to do something one day. Even the talent from other clubs, like Orlando's goalkeeper, that kid is a Venezuelan national keeper, right? So he's representing his home country internationally, and I don't know, I never get tired of that. That to me is like awe-inspiring, because I do so many sports, kind of like you're doing GPB, and I just, there's something amazing about being like, this kid plays for his home country. This is national representation in sports, and I think a lot of fans in the United States take that for granted, to be quite frank with you.
All right, where do you want to start? Pro or league?
Let's start with Next Pro.
All right.
They're closer to the to crossing the finish line, so it was a great regular season. They're down to 4 teams. They're in the conference finals. You want to start in the West or the East?
Your call.
Let's do the West. Colorado Rapids, MNUFC. You and I both have not covered those two clubs in person, but really strong years out of them. I mean, I think it's going to be possession-based out of Colorado, and I think they probably got the edge there. For me, the question is, what does that look like when they reach that Eastern Conference? I think the Western Conference usually has less parity in it, and there's a greater differential in points, and there's a lot of parity in that Eastern Conference, like it's an anybody can win it type thing. But it kind of feels like, not to reference other sports again, I hate doing that, but the NFL, it used to be the AFC, NFC, and it was like dominance for like the first decade of the Super Bowl. I do not feel like the Western Conference is going to be able to handle the Eastern Conference in the MLS Next Pro Final. I could eat those words, and I'm okay with that if I do. But you've got Red Bulls New York, you've got Philly Union 2. Think about how good Philly Union 2 was partway through the season. They had an electric year, and those are going to be tough clubs to handle in a final.
Michael Bradley taking over Red Bulls 2. Crazy. And we see where they are in the conference.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody's going to be able to handle them specifically. They just had a strong regular season. They're strong on the table. Mathematically, 58 points earned in play. 15 straight-up wins, and had all these draws, 8 draws. They've just been really successful. I think they're going to be too difficult to handle. Red Bulls, though, obviously also on a really nice year. 17 straight-up wins, scoring explosion. So, I don't know. I'm just a big Eastern Conference guy for the final, though.
You called Chattanooga this year. What was it like to see this go from Chattanooga to the 4, and then they bumped out in the rivalry with Huntsville?
Painful. I was assigned to do some USL League One, so I was actually on site with that and had to watch, and that hurt. Hurts to watch a club that you're affiliated with like that and have been around so long. I'm really grateful for Chattanooga FC. You get to be around so many different franchises and clubs and organizations when you do stuff like you and I do. And Chattanooga FC is first class from top to bottom. The players really believe in the off-the-field mission. Like, it's not just... I feel like sometimes teams whether it's a high school team or a pro team, they're faking caring about the community. Chattanooga FC is into it. Like, they want to go out, they want to get involved, they want to do things. And that's really special to see, the way that the guys talk about it, and even the girls, right, on the girls' side, and from top to bottom, the organization, like, they are into it. They have a full-time guy for community engagement. That's always been really special to me. It was a great year for everything off of the pitch, not that it wasn't a fantastic year on the field as well, but all the development that's gone on off of the field and in the structure of the club as a whole. So they've got the full player to pro pathway now, right? You can start there as a youth player, develop all the way through from childhood to playing in UPSL and play all the way up into MLS Next Pro. And they've got a full player pathway, both on the men's and women's side now, which I think is so cool. And it's really a special thing that these kids in Chattanooga have that opportunity to develop, and it's part of one of the biggest sports leagues and one of the bigger clubs in the country.
Okay, do something for me real quick. Can you mute your speaker, because it's kind of looping through a little bit when I talk, and so that's why I just muted you now, so I can do something. So mute your speaker so it doesn't kind of loop through when you and I are talking real quick.
Got you.
Okay. All right, yeah, there we go. That's better. They just turn it down and
turned it way down. Is that better?
Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay. Let's get into the rundown as it is in the Eastern Conference. Let me break it down real quick to where we are in the Eastern Conference, and you can comment on any of the teams that you want. Red Bulls, Philly, Revs, Chattanooga, Huntsville, Fire, FC Cincinnati, and 4. When I mention those 8 Eastern Conference, what sticks in your mind with you as they made the postseason, big season for to make it? Obviously, with the independents looking at it, it says a lot about MLS Next Pro, but what sticks in your head?
Just talking about the conference race to the playoff, I guess things that stick in my mind are there are some clubs that ended up below that line that probably should have made it, deserved to make it, and that's frustrating. It was quite the race to the finish, and so you see clubs like Orlando City B and Toronto and Atlanta edged out, and I was certain Atlanta was going to make it. It's interesting to see that happen. You see the independents make it, and I think that's really cool and important, and I think the league needs that. I think MLS Next Pro is going to be pivotal to the growth of soccer in America, and the way that USL1 and MLS Next Pro have positioned themselves to grow soccer over the next 5-10 years here, it's going to be super interesting. We have more security than we've ever had in the sport. You know, it's always been ever evolving, ever changing. We've seen clubs, leagues, franchises fold over and over again in North America. And so now I think we have some security, and I think these leagues are going to survive long term, which is, again, those are some words. Somebody could go back and clip this out in 20 years and use this against me, but it should be great. I'd actually love that, so please save this.
Yeah.
I think these leagues are going to persevere and be important to the American soccer landscape long term, not just short term, but we're talking 10, 20, 30 years. That being said, the independents, the reason I make that point is the independents making the playoff is significant. MLS Next Pro, to succeed, to be interesting, to grow their fandom, and to continue to fill seats, and grow the sport of soccer while providing that development platform for these guys that are trying to make it to the highest stages, whether it's internationally or right here in our own professional soccer leagues and organizations. You need the independents. They've got to be plugged in. They've got to draw crowds and draw revenue and be of interest to watch. I think as the league, it's kind of fun. You almost have like good guy, bad guy at some points, just based on how some of those affiliated clubs are treated. Huntsville, different branding, but affiliated. I still think that's such a smart business play, and that's what a lot of these major clubs should do. I love that they made it. I hate that they eliminated Chattanooga because I'm affiliated with them. But I love that they made it. And I think it was an interesting year from an independent standpoint because of the fact that last year you see the development of talent throughout the year happen so rapidly in MLS Next Pro. By the end of the year, these kids have surpassed anybody on rosters that they're playing against. So at the beginning of the year, Chattanooga and Carolina Core and Huntsville look fantastic because they have all these guys they've signed that have been in the pro ranks for a long time, right? They're extremely competitive. They're doing well. They jump way out in front on the table. And as the year goes on, the young guys on all these rosters develop. And they develop so rapidly that by the end of the season, the club they're playing for has become a menace. And all of a sudden, it's like a huge issue to go play these guys, whereas in the beginning of the season, it's like, oh, Carolina Core's got this handled. Really interesting to see that development take place every season. It's really good, though, I think, for MLS Next Pro to see them able to battle their way in. As far as just an overall view of that playoff line and the table, I would just say my final thoughts would be kind of the guys who are supposed to be at the top are. You see some clubs battling for position really hard that made it fun. You see some clubs eliminated early that I think everybody would have liked to have seen gone a little longer. But it's kind of shaping up the way it was quote-unquote supposed to shape up as we get down to the final in that league.
Okay. Let me get into USL League One really quickly. First off, we'll start from 30,000 feet. Your thoughts now that the regular season is over, and we'll get into the playoff matchups in a second. But look at the league for me from 2025 and what sticks out in your brain. We had some first-year teams that almost made it into the postseason. And Tormenta, when they brought in Mark McKeever to be the new head coach, they hit an absolute run, and they were crazy good late. What sticks in your mind before we get into the playoff matchups themselves from 2025 in USL League One?
Juan Carlos absolutely deserved the Golden Boot. Some really good offensive firepower in that league. I can't tell you how fun it is to sit down and be like, I know someone's going to go off, and it's going to be crazy. Babacar Dieng just scored a golazo against Knoxville in the last match of the year I covered. He got down out front. Beautiful feed from the end line, chested it in. That league is so much fun, and Jeremy Allenbaugh has built something really special, and he believes in his mission, right? And he is somebody who, kind of like SDH, you know, when I think of you and I think of Jason, and I think of the way that you guys approach soccer across the Southeast, I think of guys that really believe in the sport and see the beauty and fun enjoying it, and you're really mission driven, which is crazy. Like, it's crazy that it has to be a mission, because I can't believe more people are not engaged in this already. It's fun. There's not an opportunity to go out and try to sell and grow a sport or an activity in other areas or regions of the game, right? So you look NFL, we don't need any help growing American football. Basketball, we got the NBA, everybody cares, right? Soccer, you're out trying to grow this. It's a mission. And Jeremy Allenbaugh is a champion for soccer. He believes in it. He believes in this league. He has taken it step to step to step. He is growing it so rapidly. It's really cool to see how far it's come already. All these first-year clubs did so well, and these coaches are so proud of it. I mean, Bobby Murphy making the playoff first-year Portland, they're drawing 6,000-7,000 people. I don't know how those bleachers at that high school, they're going to have to build a stadium fast. I don't know how they're holding all those people. Every time, it's like nuts. There's smoke bombs everywhere. Feels like you're watching some true blue Middle Europe footy, right? Other than that, though, you know, the first-year clubs, I'm excited to see that. That has been really cool to see all those markets. Not a single market did not do well that was a first-year club. Maybe not on the field, I guess, but they're all proud of their mission. They're proud of the development of talent. They're all implementing things to make the future even better for USL League One, but of course for their community specifically. And there's a lot of clubs coming. There's new clubs coming to championship. There's new clubs coming. Yeah, so many. I mean, it's crazy, the explosion. We've got that in USL League One. We've got an explosion in MLS Next Pro and new clubs. So it's going to be a really exciting next season on the pro soccer side across the United States.
No doubt about it. Let me go through the matchups really quickly, and I want your thoughts on USL League One matchups. Saturday at CHI Memorial, it's Red Wolves and P-Hop, the Portland Hearts of Pine. I still need to get like their LL Bean jersey. That thing is pretty sweet. Naples goes in. They take on Union Omaha. One Knox gets Charlotte. Spokane hosting Tormenta. When I look at these matchups, I'm thinking it's going to be crazy. What are you looking at with these matchups specifically?
Definitely going to be crazy. I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have a couple of all-out brawls. You're going to Tennessee with Portland Hearts of Pine, right off the highway there in East Ridge. They are not going to want to let Portland out of there. Portland has some absolute nut jobs on that roster. Nathan Messer is going to be going crazy in the final third. How do you contain a guy like that? Think about the defensive back line of the Red Wolves and those strikers and the attack that Portland Hearts of Pine bring, the strategy that Chattanooga plays with, the fun, free-flying style of Bobby Murphy in Portland. That is going to be a fun match. And that kicks off the slate. That's the first one in USL League One in the playoff. It's a 7 p.m. kickoff. If I was not going to be out of town, I would go in person to that one. That is going to be a blast. Excited for that. And then 30 minutes later, down at Paradise Sports Complex in Florida, FC Naples is hosting Union Omaha. By the way, shout out to the Owls, slipping into the playoff. They had a rough start to the year. They weathered the storm. They had a good attitude about it. They were able to fight their way all the way back and make the playoff after not having a great start to the season. Really impressive job. And that's what you expect out of a winning club like that, right? That's why they're so storied and historical and have such a great franchise. But really cool to see them able to do that. FC Naples is going to be a tough beat at home in Paradise Sports Complex, right? That's a tough spot. It's hot there. It's going to be they're going to go from very cold to very hot very quickly. South Florida, very humid. That'll round out Saturday. There's 2 matches on Saturday. Sunday's got a pair as well. Knoxville playing host to Charlotte, and really nice run for Charlotte as well. The Independents put together a great second half of the season, taking a lot more points in half 2. Some of those clubs that were way out in front early in the year, they were able to get by them. Westchester, these clubs were really powerful and kind of lost momentum or just couldn't compete with the changes in strategy and the meshing of the roster that these coaches brought together. The amount of consistency the USL 1 brings to the table is very interesting. MLS Next Pro, for a multitude of reasons, and probably not even a bad thing, I kind of like that we have one league where there's so much shuffling of the roster throughout the year and a league where it's extremely consistent. You could cover Spokane way back in March and then cover them again a month ago, right? In October, whatever, September. Kind of a similar look, similar roster, similar shape, similar strategy. Things kind of feel the same. Not in a bad way. Things might be a little different. It's more tweaks and like they've added a guy or 2 guys or somebody has risen up from the bench and is now a starter. Very similar faces, talent, approach, attitude. You don't have that in MLS Next Pro. You've got guys coming down to play a match or 2 to get some experience from Atlanta United, right? You've got guys coming out of nowhere, getting signed, loaned, et cetera, et cetera. And so the roster will look extremely different month to month. I mean, it's interesting. Not a bad thing, just an observation. USL 1, I think that's relevant because these are consistent rosters, and it's the meshing and tweaks and the strategy that have allowed these teams to change the course of their season. It shows coaches with experience that knew how to build a roster. They come out, they're not doing well early like Union Omaha. They say, I believe in my strategy. I know the group of guys and the group of talent that I have here. They're going to get this together. They're able to do that. So that'll be interesting at 4 p.m. on Sunday. Knoxville playing host to Charlotte. And then rounding out the weekend with an 8 p.m. primetime matchup, Tormenta at Spokane. Way out in Washington. Probably going to rain. That coach, Lee, is a genius, man. His strategic stuff. That's actually a fun matchup just because of McKeever and Lee specifically. 2 really bright coaches. 2 guys that understand what they have, what they put forward. They're going to be playing some chess in Washington.
You going to come back next week?
What?
You coming back next week to talk about it?
I will, yeah, if you'd like me to.
Oh, absolutely. As long as we
plan on it. I might call you later today and harass you, actually.
As always, my friend, great to see you. Thanks for dropping by. We'll catch up with you next week. We'll update more stuff.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Right. And there goes Gabe. Gabe is Gabe. For those of you that have the plus, it might be a familiar voice because Gabe does go down and he calls USL League One stuff integral part of what happened on the weekend with Atlanta United and the U matchups that Maddie and Jason got to call. So yeah, Gabe's all over the place. Calls Chattanooga FC, and that's his knowledge base. That's where it starts with MLS Next Pro. Then he has everything going on with USL League One and the championship that he calls from South Florida. And so that's why we enlisted Gabe with those 2 leagues heading into the playoffs and postseason. Figured we'd get his breakdown of stuff. And thank you, as always, for hanging out with us. And as we take care of everything on a Monday. By the way, we do have some of this. Red Bulls have announced a transition, and this is their headline. New York Red Bulls announced sporting leadership transition. Club looks ahead and refocuses on building for future successes following an incredible 15-year playoff run. Beginning in 2026, Julian de Guzman will assume the role of head of sport. as part of the club's long-term succession plan, succeeding Jochen Schneider, who has decided to return home to be with his family in Europe. Additionally, Sandro Schwartz will not return as head coach for the 26th season. Over the last 2 seasons, de Guzman has worked alongside and been mentored by Schneider. Since joining the club in 24, he's been at the helm of Red Bulls 2, who secured first place in the Eastern Conference this season and will soon play the Eastern Conference Final. Paragraph 3. Trailblazer in Canadian soccer, de Guzman made history as the first Canadian to play in Spain's top division with Deportivo de La Coruña, Player of the Year in 2007-8 season. 89 caps for Canada, one of the most capped players in the nation's history. Canadian Player of the Year in 2008 and reached the semifinals of the Gold Cup. All-tournament team honors in both 2007 and 2009. Schneider, who has been with the club since 22, shared that his decision was motivated by the need to prioritize his family, who are based in Europe. And then it goes down another couple of paragraphs. And Schwartz joined the from Schneider. I would like to thank Sandro for the last 2 seasons, especially coaching this team during a memorable 2024 playoff run. His dedication to the job was outstanding, and I truly wish him nothing but the best in his future coaching endeavors, end quote. Schwartz joined the Red Bulls out of the 24 season, immediate impact, Eastern Conference Championship, second MLS Cup final. Under his leadership, 23 regular season victories advanced to the later stages of the Open Cup. Additionally, assistant coach Volkan Bulut will not return for the 26th season. The search for a new head coach begins immediately, and they're going to have a media avail with Schneider and de Guzman on Tuesday, 2 o'clock in Harrison, New Jersey. So there are changes going on in Red Bull land. So not necessarily a surprise. Now, also updating on Sheffield Wednesday's situation. We mentioned once again the whole John Textor thing. So they would go into administration Friday, hit by a 12-point deduction, and they're now -6, 13 points adrift. And now apparently, according to TalkSport, there have been other breaches made by the club that have yet to be met with charges. This could mean further points deductions, but any punishment will be handed out in the 25-26 season. Wednesday, once again, they appointed Begbie's trainers, administrators, got to stay on the block for 28 days. Club and stadium owners, both in administration under the same administrators, which should make the sale of the assets straightforward. And new owners, according to Chris Wigfield from Begbie's trainer, say new owners could be in place by the end of the year. And Wigfield did an interview with BBC. And Sheffield Wednesday supporters rallied around the club. Fans spent in excess of £200,000 in the club shop and on tickets. And they had to restaff the club shop. They had so many folks rushing to the club shop, they had to restaff it on game day. And over £200,000 has been spent in the club shop, sold 9,000 tickets for the match in just 24 hours. And 24 hours to prepare for the weekend. Very little cash available, but your response, and this is from the club to the fans, your response has been overwhelming. You've given us hope and a fighting chance. Our job is to now keep that momentum going, end quote. Sheffield Wednesday are in action on Saturday, taking on West Brom, who does not have a day of the week attached to their name. So that is the update from everything involving Sheffield Wednesday. So 4 or 5 bidders have emerged, and that's what we're staring at right now with all of it and all of the chaos that is attached to what is going on there. Before we get out of here, your moment of cool. And we got to do what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it as well. Thanks once again to Gabe Schray, breaking down everything MLS Next Pro and USL League One. Thanks to Abe Gordon coming in, talking about everything on Atlanta United. Once again, tomorrow, as it stands, KCD is going to join us at 9:15 to talk about college, talk about NWSL and anything else on her mind. We may even talk a little MLS playoffs. And then Jason Stevens, we will ask him about what is going on with administrations and Sheffield Wednesday and John Textor and all those things, and we'll have his thoughts coming up tomorrow, last half hour of the show. So that is tomorrow on the air. Now, I mentioned moment of cool, and I don't know how many of you got the opportunity to see what was going on in the doubleheader involving the national team on the weekend. And part of the agreement that HBO Max, or HBO, I guess they're back to HBO, HBO, TNT, WBD, or TNT and that group, TBS, HBO Max, all of that, as a part of the agreement, they get to broadcast some of the extended team matches as well. So leading into the game in East Hartford involving the U.S. women's national team, the men's deaf national team played Germany ahead of the 2025 Deaf Olympics this November. And so it was a matchup in East Hartford. And it's the first for the United States against Germany in 6 all-time meetings since the series began back in 2012. Goals from and a pair of assists from Chris Bordon led the attack. U.S. defense backstopped by 18-year-old keeper Sam Lang, who gets a win in his international debut. And it was 18th minute. Bordon wins a duel in the midfield. He's the 2023 U.S. Soccer Male Deaf Player of the Year. Gives to Samson Abraham, and Samson Abraham puts it in the back of the net for the first goal. So Bordon to Abraham in the 18th minute made it 1-0. Bordon to Michael Schmid made it 2-0. Germany scored at the beginning of the second half in the 48th minute. Settlemeyer to Bayer, and that made it 2-1. Then Tate Lancaster scored in the 50th minute, and it was a 1-goal game for like 2 minutes. Tate Lancaster scores to regain the 2-goal margin. And then once again, we mentioned that was their first ever win against Germany. Samson Abraham gets his first career goal in his 5th career appearance. 30th appearance, Michael Schmidt gets his 13th international goal. Chris Bordon 2 assists, taking his career to 4 in 11 appearances. Tate Lancaster, captain the side, got his 2nd international goal in the first since September of 23 against Egypt, and the international debut for Sam Lang, 4 saves to get his first win. So it was a big day for the U.S. and the deaf national team. 28 shots, 14 each side, 6 shots on target for Germany, 5 for the U.S., 4 saves for Sam Lang compared to 1, 9 corners, 32 fouls called in the match, 21 attributed to the United States, 4 offsides, and it was 3 yellows for the U.S., Philip Cruz, J.J. Waterman, and Braden Anderson. Your folks in the middle, Andrew Kirst was the man in the middle, Elizabeth McDonald, Stephen Cardoso, your ARs, your 4th was Devin Miller. Man of the match was Chris Bordon, and we get to hear from Chris and find out what it was like for him in the match day in Hartford. Here is a post-match with Chris Bordon. Once again, thanks to our friends at U.S. Soccer. And here's Chris after the match. And it was really cool to be able to pull this sound as well. So here's Chris Bordon after the 3-1 win.
Just first talk about the occasion of today, what it means to beat Germany as you head to the Deaf Olympics.
Oh man, I mean, just building up to this game, I just had so much excitement going into it. Felt like the butterflies in my stomach. And then the second the first whistle happened, all this went away. And I had no doubt in my mind that we were going to be able to beat Germany and to be able to do it on our home field and to be able to help provide the team with 2 assists and get the win just felt amazing.
What does it mean to beat Germany? This is the first time in 6 games.
Oh yeah, Germany beat us, I think it was 2 times before I joined the team. I lost them in Malaysia, and I definitely took that game personal for sure. And so it's definitely very sweet to get that revenge 2 years later. So yeah, just all that just means so much more.
How much are you looking forward to Japan now?
Oh, I mean, I've always been super excited about it, especially after this win, just carrying the momentum into Tokyo. I think it's going to help the team a lot.
That is Chris Bordon, the player of the match. Man of the match in the 3-1 win over Germany for the U.S. deaf national team. And not to be outdone, the guy who scored the first goal that Bordon got the assist with, Samson Abraham. He's a very confident sort. We like this. So here's Samson Abraham after the match, once again, courtesy of our friends at U.S. Soccer and Vitaphone.
Samson, the opening goal, your first career goal for the U.S. Tell us how it felt.
I mean, first of all, I have to say all glory to God. You know, without God, I wouldn't be in this position. I want to say thank you to my family and my friend. They inspired me to just keep performing well in this game. And, I came out wanting a goal. And, as everyone saw, scored that goal. So it's just a dream come true. Just keep working. As I say every day, job not finished. But everyone's going to expect some more goals.
What does a result like today against a big team like Germany do for the confidence of the team as you head to Japan for the Deaf Olympics?
We're going to go in strong. We're going to be facing Ukraine, who I believe were champion in another tournament. But we're not scared. We're going to come in. We're going to beat them. We're going to go hard as we can today. yeah, and we're gonna try to finish the whole tournament with a goal.
What can you say about the crowd, the occasion, getting to do a doubleheader with the women's national team?
Well, really, wow, which is astonishing. That's one word I would say. And to see like so many young and adults fans, which is I'm forever grateful for them. They made this game special, honestly. So thank you for them.
Samson Abraham scored the first goal for the U.S. Deaf national team. They get the 3-1 win over Germany. So, personally, I think it's cool that U.S. Soccer, once again, they were able to turn some posts for anyone. And the fact that we got to get post-match from Bordon and Samson Abraham after the first win ever in program history against Germany. Very, very cool moment once again. They're prepping for the Deaf Olympics, get the 3-1 win. And that's your update there. The front end of the doubleheader in East Hartford for the activity yesterday. So it was men's deaf national team, and then you had the women's national team, 2 wins for both sides. I think they were both 3-1 wins, as a matter of fact. So both 3-1 wins, and thanks to U.S. Soccer for doing doubleheaders like that. And very, very cool that we're able to share that experience with you going forward when it comes to the extended teams, with the conversations that we had last week with Stuart Sharp and with Jacob Crumley. If you missed the episode of The Roots with Jacob Crumley, you can find that on your favorite podcatcher, or you can subscribe to everything that we do here at SDH. And when there is a new episode out, you know about it. You can go ahead and listen in. But to be able to tell the story of the extended teams as well, it's very, very cool that we are able to do that here at SDH. Okay. Rich does mention once again the Red Bulls, but I legitimately think that once you didn't make the playoffs for the first time in 15 years, I figured that that at least Sandro Schwarz was going to be he was going to be looking for a new employ. But it goes to sporting director, and it goes to Sandro Schwarz, and they are promoting from the 2s, and they're working their way up that way. And who knows? I'm just saying, what happens if Red Bulls 2 win MLS Next Pro this year? Do you promote Michael Bradley from the 2s and have him as the new head coach of Red Bulls, considering he knows the younger players, he knows the system, he knows what's going on when it comes to anything and everything going on with Red Bulls right now? Does he move from Montclair to Harrison? I'm just going to put that out there. I have no intel one way or the other. I have no intel whatsoever. But do you seriously consider within the organization promoting Michael Bradley from Red Bulls 2 to be the new head coach at New York Red Bulls? Just a thought. Once again, reminder, MLS Next Pro Final Four, it is Rapids hosting Loons, Rapids 2 hosting Loons 2. What happened on the weekend, the Rapids 2 knocked off the Town 4-2 at PayPal Park in San Jose. Red Bulls 2 knocked off Fire 2. Once again, the Fire give up 5 goals. The Fire give up 5 goals, and they lose. I'm going to check this real quick. So Chicago Fire 2, how many matches late in the year did they give up 5 goals? It was a lot. So, okay, so here's of the last half dozen matches that Chicago Fire 2 played, their opponents scored 5 goals. The last 6 matches, their opponents scored 5 goals in 4 of them. Gave up 3 to Crew in 1 of them. And then in the first round of the playoffs, they beat the Revs 1-0 at Gillette. So in their last 6 matches, 24 goals or 23 goals allowed in 6 matches. Gave up 5 to NYCFC 2, losing 5-4 in Bridgeview. Philadelphia scored 5 on them at Subaru Park. You'll remember the Atlanta United match where Atlanta United put 5 on Fire when they really needed to continue their road play to have a shot on decision day. They needed that win. And they got it 5-2. Losing 5-4 to NYCFC. Losing 5-2 to the Union. Losing 5-2 to Atlanta United. drawing 3-3 with Crew 2. And that was it for the regular season. So 3 of their last 4 going into the playoffs, they gave up 5 goals each. 18 goals on the spin going into the playoffs. Then it was 1-0. You thought everything was cool and calm for Fire 2. Then they go to Montclair and give up 5 again. I can't think of a stretch where literally a team was as porous as that. In 6 matches, giving up 23 matches, 4 times giving up 5. And this one, by the way, did go longer than 90 minutes. It was 5th, 25th, 42nd for Red Bulls 2. And then Jason Shukuluk got a brace in the first half, and then Williams scored to make it 3-3. So 3-3, no goals scored after 53 minutes. They go to the extra 30. Rojas scores in the 111th. Jimenez scores at 120 plus 2 as the game is getting stretched and Chicago's chasing an equalizer. But still, Fire 2 giving up 5 goals again. That is crazy to me. 23 goals given up in their last 6 matches, 4 of them in the regular season, 2 in the playoffs, and they're bounced by Red Bulls 2. So that's what you're looking at with Chicago Fire 2. But Red Bulls 2 hosting Union 2 at Montclair. Don't know the time yet, but we will be efforting sound from the Union and from Red Bulls. We'll see if Red Bulls offer up Michael Bradley for sound and for interviews heading into the Eastern Conference Final. And we'll see if the Rapids and the Loons do anything on the Western Conference side. So that's your MLS Next Pro rundown. Gabe gave you the rundown in USL League One. Like I said, we're efforting Kaylor Hodges this week, and it was we'll catch up with him on USL Championship. And Rich, yes, Fire 2 had beaten Red Bulls 2. I think that was Michael Bradley's first match as coach with Red Bulls 2. 9-2. We were shocked when we saw that. At that particular point of the season, Fire 2 winning 9-2. I think that was Michael Bradley's first. And I think that was the wake-up call that everybody needed at Montclair going from there. But, yeah, it is going to be Union 2 at Fire 2 at Montclair. Don't know the time yet. And it's going to be Loons 2 at Rapids 2, your Final 4 in MLS Next Pro. And like I said, Gabe broke down everything with your Final 4 in the opening round of the playoffs in USL League One. And like I said, when Mark McKeever came in with South Georgia Tormenta, he was just supposed to be doing academy work. And then Ian Cameron decides to step away. And for Darren Van Tassel, it's like losing a member of his family. You promote McKeever, and you end up with what you have right now, a team that is on a roll and has made it into the playoffs with plenty to spare. It is one Knox at 57, Chattanooga at 55, Spokane at 51. It's going to be a tough run for South Georgia Tormenta to go out to the 3. Naples lost 3 in a row. They snapped that with a win on decision day to get to 47 points. They could have been the 7 if things had not worked out for them on decision day. Union Omaha gets their way in. They're going unbeaten in their last 5. They get into the postseason. Tormenta, when did South Georgia Tormenta last lose a match? When did they last lose a match? So, all right. So McKeever comes in, and I think it was in that game in, all right, so backward. Texoma, win. Greenville, win. Draw Spokane in Spokane, so the book is out. Win against Westchester, win against Richmond, win against AV Alta in Lancaster, win against Greenville. The last time they lost was September the 6th in Statesboro against One Knox. But then it was August 30, they beaten Forward Madison, so they've lost only once in their last 9 matches to get to that particular spot in the postseason in USL League One. And so we'll probably try to do our best to preview that as well. And it was wins that got them the 6 over Portland Hearts of Pine, who only had 11 wins on the season. They were your 7. Charlotte sneaks in after losing 4 of 5. They lose on decision day and still get in. AV Alta drew, and Forward Madison lost. Those were the only other 2 that had a chance to get into the postseason. Charlotte's your 8. AV Alta, Forward Madison, good runs there at 36 and 35 points. Greenville at 32. Texoma 7-14 and 9 and 30. Richmond 8-17 and 5 and 29. Westchester got off to that hot start and then they only would end up winning 5 of 30 and finishing up at 24 points in league play. So that's your rundown of what it's going to look like. And Gabe mentioned, once again, we'll go back over the matchups here in the opening round. Saturday, it is Portland Hearts of Pine at Chattanooga. It is Union Omaha at FC Naples. Sunday afternoon at 1 Knox, it is Charlotte at 1 Knox. And then it is Tormenta at Spokane Velocity for the nightcap at 1 Spokane. So that's the rundown of all of that. It's been a busy day. We did a lot of stuff today. It was USL League One, MLS Next Pro, U.S. Men's Deaf National Team, U.S. Women's National Team. A lot on John Textor, and like I said, we'll talk to our buddy Jason Stevens and get more, and we'll air that tomorrow. Then it was everything in Major League Soccer and everything that has gone on in news that we can pick up quickly. Remember, tonight it is soccer over there, 8 o'clock on the network, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Jason and I will be at the Brew House Cafe. We'll break down a lot of things going on. There's stuff going on in Brazil you need to know about. There's stuff going on in Turkey you need to know about. There are player impersonations. There is gambling having to do with referees. We'll go over anything else that is going on around the planet. We'll have that for you at 8 o'clock. 8 until 10, we got Picks of the Week. I have no earthly idea who won Picks of the Week. We'll all find out together here on the network. Once again, Jason and I will be at the Brewhouse Cafe. Please come and join us should you feel so inclined, and we'll break everything down there. I think that's it. Oh, we also, coming up soon on another edition of The Roots, it's an interview with Daz Moss, the president of the Prague Raptors in the Czech League, where they started something from scratch, and they have gone from the 9th division on the men's side up to the 7th in the 6th in a couple of seasons. Their men's B has gone from the 9th to the 7th. And on the women's side, they've gone from the 4th division on the women's side up to the 2nd division in only a handful of seasons. And so we find out what it's like to build something. How does a guy from Leeds end up building something in Prague and make it get the success that it's been so far? We catch up with Daz Moss for a future edition of The Roots. If you missed it, Red Clay Soccer Report, also presented and powered by our friends at NoFo Brewing, takes you through everything going on in the colleges across the board. Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, men's, women's, it's all there. As regular seasons are winding down, getting you close to what's going on in the postseason. And we're keeping an eye on the U17s, and believe that is it for today. Tomorrow, Casey White joining us at 9:15. We'll find out from Jason Stevens what's going on overseas. We're efforting other interviews as well, and that will get us off and running. Remember tonight, Major League Soccer, hell is real, and it is Minnesota hosting Seattle. We'll effort Chris Doran at some point this week and find out what his thoughts are on match day number 1 in Major League Soccer's postseason, and we will all lay it out for you then. We'll talk probably a little El Clasico coming up tonight, and we'll probably talk about Liverpool being in crisis mode after 4 losses in a row, and news out of Marseille from the Associated Press. Timothy Weah left the field after a thigh injury during Marseille's 2-1 loss to Lens after providing his first assist during the first half. Did not immediately answer a request regarding the nature of the injury yesterday, and it's don't know how badly it's looking right now, but it's not looking good. Another note internationally before we get out of here from Ben Jacobs. Kevin De Bruyne had a look on his face yesterday as he was leaving his match that it didn't feel good. High-grade tear to his right thigh in the 3-1 win of Napoli over Inter. Napoli confirmed rehabilitation has started, expected to be out months. So Kevin De Bruyne, it looked like it was in the first half because he made it back to the bench with his thigh getting wrapped. High-grade tear right thigh. Kevin De Bruyne out for a long time for his new club, Napoli, as they won 3-1 over Inter on Saturday. Matty Cash signed a new contract at Villa, keeping him there till 29, option for yet another year. Juve sacking Igor Tudor after the 1-0 loss to Lazio, 8th in Serie A. Massimiliano Brambilla taking interim charge until Juve finds a replacement, and other news in the lower divisions as well. And if you haven't followed Ben Jacobs, please do at JacobsBen on the Twitters. That's another Reaction Monday here at SDH. As always, thanks for dropping by, as you always do. Thanks to y'all. Thanks to Gabe. Thanks to the U.S. Soccer for helping us out there. Thanks to Abe. And thanks to all of you for being great, intrepid producers and letting us know about what's going on in and around the world, because your hands are a lot faster than mine when it comes to finding stuff on the interwebs. Back at it again tomorrow, 9:05 a.m. for another go-round of SDH AM. 8 o'clock tonight from the brew house. It's soccer over there. Mucha Platiel, play it safe. Since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. Back at it again, 8 o'clock tonight, and then back here, 9:05 in the morning. Be good.